and they've got 3.2 million, I think, but this was some months ago, 3.2 million subscribers, which is more than the legacy media in New Zealand. Isn't that amazing? So they are new startups. And when they were asking money from Meta, I was part of the advisory board. It was something that we looked at. We looked to see what audiences want out of news. Okay. And can I just say, they use such language because young people use such language. But the news that they produce was really serious news. They produce news in a bite-sized kind of format. So it's not pages and pages. If people want to know what's going on, for example, in the Middle East or in Russia, or, what's the latest, their investigators would actually look up and write stories about that, which makes it really interesting. And then they also produce clips, video clips, very enlightening, encouraging video clips. You might want to check them out because they have international audience as well. So Iligan looks at a few new startups in Southeast Asia. You might want to look at her work and check out the new startups in your region. Okay. All right. So this is actually a study that I did together with my co-writer. And what we looked at was the organization Asia Pacific Media Network, APMN. Now, we founded this about 4 years ago. And the reason we looked at this was because we found that there was a lack of representation of Pacific and Asian voices in New Zealand mainstream media. Excuse me, guys, my voice is really bad. I'm just going to have a quick cough. Okay, done. Sorry about that. Where was I? So, not enough presentation of our voices, right? And we are talking here about Asian issues, Asian voices in media elsewhere. And that was lacking. And a group of us who are very concerned about marginalized voices in media decided that we have to set something up to champion the cause, right? So we set up this thing called Asia Pacific Media Network. Can I just say the link is at the bottom? I'll share this the slides with Professor Herman, and she can share with you guys. You can join if you want. Can I just say you can join to be a member? I can't remember, but member I think is $25. To be a supporter is only 10, if I'm not mistaken. Now I'm not selling this, but I'm just saying that if you want to know what's happening somewhere else and you want to join, you're most welcome to join. We also have things like newsletters that will come to your email pretty regularly, telling you what's going on in terms of Asian and Pacific issues in the Pacific, in Aotearoa, which is New Zealand and its surrounding islands. So the study, when we look at APMN, we found that APMN supports constructive media through a few things. Ethical reporting, so always asking the question, why are we doing this? Who is it for? What does it aim to do? It's inclusive, so we include different diverse voices about a specific issue. There's no taking sides. And that it is solution-oriented journalism. We are looking for answers. So, for example, if they say this is an issue that the government should look at or the authority should look at, we don't just say this is an issue the government should look at. We actually invite, whether it's government or media or specific voices where authority is required, from the authority perspective. We also engage academics. Oh, and by the way, this Asia Pacific Media Network is made up of not just journalists, but academics who also teach media, including myself, although I have written for news outlets, and also activist groups like Solidarity Network or championing the cause for children, for example, groups that support social justice. So we do have such groups, different bodies, NGOs have also joined our organization because they feel that their voices are not heard enough in terms of civic participation, and they want to empower marginalized groups. All right, so this is a body where everyone is welcome, and no one voice will supersede another voice because we all make up a part of the whole. And the job of the organization is to offer an alternative to conventional news narrative. Okay, so it's more problem focused. So what we do is we encourage constructive journalism. It's rooted in community journalism as well. And it's to amplify those voices, as I mentioned, Pacific and Asian voices. Now, I want to come to positioning as a communication scholar. I'm looking at the time. I have a good half hour. Am I right? Thank goodness. Okay.
Yes. We have our class until 9:30. So still
Oh, I have plenty of time.
yes.
I have 1 hour. So now we come talk about, before I do that, should I take a break and ask questions?
Yes, you can.
To talk about, okay, somebody has a question, which is
Prof.
great.
Isn't it, Prof. Hermin?
Yes, please.
So yeah, thank you so much. I've been paying very, very deep attention to your very last topic that you discussed about legacy media and versus startups. And my name is Pas. I'm the doctoral student just sitting here. So thank you, Prof. Hermin, for letting me to be here.
Cool.
I would like to know your opinion. Asia itself, or maybe you also know big media like Tempo, Kompas, and The Tick. They are like a massive media outlets where they have many platforms. They have many types of section and genre. Even they even have different segments for their media. So my question would be independent, just like how the media is supposed to be, or you think it really depends on the global platform, knowing that these days Google, Meta, and TikTok has been dominating in quite the distribution of the news. So just that. And the second thing is, what do you think of startup media who's been receiving investment from venture capital? Like I know IDN Media and the quite senior journalist, and she's very active in terms of creating news, educating people, and distributing information to the citizens and so on. So do you think venture capital kind of media that has investment from like big companies, do you think they will still have the autonomy to run their own media, or you think it would have another commodification of attention, or probably like political economy and so on? I would like to know your opinion. Thank you.
Question. I would say you need to go back to your value system, right? I don't mean you, I mean the organization itself. Because when you think about it, this idea of culture in such a situation, because at the end of the day, you need to ask yourselves, me as a startup, if I'm setting up a startup, why am I starting up? What can I offer that is different, that is not already there? So, for example, that organization, the one I mentioned earlier, Shit You Should Care About, the reason why they continue to grow is because they're offering something unique. And can I just say, it keeps changing, right? They're collecting a lot of data as they go along. You talk about social media. The wonderful thing about social media, if you have a platform is you can use the analytics, right, to study what your audience are listening to, what they want to know, what they want to hear. But at the end of the day, is that what you're about as a news outlet? Are you just giving people what they want? Because if that's what you're doing, then you may be no different than someone else who does analytics. But if you're looking at what people are concerned about and covering it because you have a duty to cover it, and capturing the different dynamics, the different voices, then you're doing due justice to your own value system. If that's your value system, I'm talking about our value system, right? Because I'm part of the executive group, if you like, of the Asia Pacific Media Network. So if you're talking about belonging to a media network, and to what extent are we true to our mission and our vision, then the onus lies on the ownership, the owners. Can I just say, with our kind of agency, nobody owns it. It's a group ownership. So you will not get someone saying, the buck stops with me, you do it my way because I brought in the most money. It doesn't work like that. But if you have an organization that is severely dependent on investors, and they see their job to be representing the needs of these investors, then that's the kind of media outlet they are, And citizens these days are so well informed. They will switch off if they know, and you tell them a piece of news that is not reflected in the other truth news outlets, they will switch off. It doesn't matter if, as I said, New Zealand Herald is huge, but they don't have the kind of audience that this young news outlet, have got. Simply because it's, again, your value system, your mission, your vision. Is there someone else who's raising their hands?
That is Farhan, please. Yeah. Yes, your voice, we cannot hear your voice.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. So I would like to ask the question. First of all, you've mentioned about the cultural aspect, which was from Taoism and Yin and Yang, something like that. And I'm curious about how Abrahamic religions like Islam, Christianity, Judaism affect the mass communication and communication around Asian, as we know that Abrahamic religions also come from Asian. And then the second one is, does the ideology or history of a national also affect the way media construct the reality? Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Can you repeat your second question? Your first question was very clear. What was your second question, please?
Okay, my second question is, does the history and ideology of a national also affect the way media construct reality? Is it clear?
Yes, very clear.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Firdaus, for that question. Again, very, very great questions. Can I say, for your first question, I will actually answer that in my next few slides, because religion plays a huge role as part of our view of life, right? So when we talk about communication being culture, religion is a way of life for some people. So certainly it comes across in the way they communicate. So I will cover that in more detail later on, because there's been research that I have been personally involved in that captures religion, or religion influences the way things are perceived. So I'll talk about that in a short while. Your second question is about, to what extent was it history and ideology influence communication? A large extent. In fact, your second question supports your first question, Your first question is about the role of religion in comms. Your second question is about to what extent it influences the way we tell stories or the way we communicate. To a large extent, it underpins the way we think about communicating, and what we hope to get out of communication. So that's something I will cover shortly, if you don't mind just waiting a while more. I just want to say, though, when you think about the way you communicate, if you say my faith or religion underpins the way I communicate, then the question is, if you swear a lot, if you use the F word a lot, does your religion support that? If the answer is no, then why are you doing it? Do you know what I mean? So again, it depends, I think, on the way the individual practice the faith as well. So it's not just saying, oh, I'm a Christian, or I'm a Muslim, or I'm a Buddhist, but you don't internalize some of these ideology taught by those religions, taught by those, the worldviews, even Judaism, for example. And you mentioned Abrahamic faith, and they share Judaism, Christianity, and Islam share the Abrahamic, faith scope, if you like. And they all tend to share the same sort of thing: courtesy, concern for others, humanity, peace. But to what extent do individuals claiming to practice or belonging to those specific ideologies actually practice it in communication? So in answer to your question, we know what the faith teaches in terms of communication, but practitioners, whether or not they belong to the faith, may not practice as the faith requires them to practice. And can I just say, sometimes you don't even know what the communication thought is in terms of those ideology. Oh, I have to be courteous, I have to be polite. But, in terms of the science, in terms of the comms concepts, some of us do not know. Well, I have done some work from the Islamic perspective. So today I will share with you what I found in terms of a theory, which I then used as a methodology in quite a few of my works. Okay, so I'll share that with you maybe a bit later. Okay, very good questions, guys. Any other questions you have? Okay, if not, shall I move on, Amin? Cool.
Yes, please.
All right, so this is positioning. I don't know if you can see that crash landing on you. So positioning as a communication scholar means that you situate yourself in your research. Now, this is very important. Situating yourself in your research means, where do you belong in the scheme of things in your attempt to do this piece of work? So I'll give you some examples later on, but I just want you to think about this idea. Rudyard Kipling, a famous poet in the 1800s, he said, "East is east and west is west, and never the twain shall meet." The two of you will never meet. All right, so you just belong in different regions and you should just stay there. I mean, that's what it seems to say, but actually this poem is about so there was this colonizer, right? A European chap colonizing someone who is Oriental, but they actually share similar values. And the values they shared in this war framework was the values of honor and courage.
I find the concept of,
which is why I have crash landing on you, because you've got North Korea and South Korea. But at the end of the day, it's really about, where you belong and your value system.
the digital tension between South Korea
And the other thing we need to know is cultures are not, whether we're unique or even if we're unique, we're not mutually exclusive, right? Because as I said, we have those shared values. Also, at the same time, with mass migration, global migration now, it's so easy to move from A to B. You've got flights every day, multiple flights just to one
advance in concept
region alone.
encouragement of
And with intercultural
international
communication, right, in this
on social
context,
media,
and you have the growth of
yes,
diaspora
we are
groups,
discussing
that means,
discussion
I mean, I'm Asian.
might
I've
be
lived in New
one
Zealand for
is
20
very
years now,
and
you
I
know.
think
So if you ask me,
both
can I still
culture
speak
concentrated
Malay? I still can.
yet remains
Jadi masih bisa ya,
global.
bahasa
Even
Indonesia juga bisa. It's not a problem, you know. I don't lose it, right? Then again, I speak differently, so I tend to speak more
So my
British
question
English because my
is,
husband
if
happens to
culture
be
is
British.
communication,
But
does
I
this
understand
about the
Kiwi
culture
language.
in this
Kiwi
global
language, when they
impact
say
refuse to ingest culture
pen, P-E-N,
reciprocity,
yeah, pen, they say pin, right? So they say, do you have a pin? Pen sama pin, same, pin. So I remember going to a counter to buy something, and the girl asked me, have you got a pin? So I thought she wanted a code, you know, pin number 1, 2, 3, 4. So I said, no, I don't have a pin. And she said, no, but you're holding a pin. I was holding a pen, you know, and I thought, oh, pin, pen, right? So at the end of the day, you know, being Asian, I still have my language, you know, my etymology, if you like. Later on, I'll talk about that, language etymology, which is my, you know, where language originates. So there are lots of adaptation, right? You try to assimilate the different culture. So with the whole point is East and West will meet. The whole point is, if you look at your country now, you've got migrants, right, from different parts of the world, and they belong. Some of them even speak your language because they've lived there long enough, but they never lose who they are in terms of their identity. They become a mishmash, if you like, a hot pot of things. And this is normal. So whereas in the 1800s, in the time of Rudyard Kipling, it might be true, even during his time, he acknowledges that cultures share values. Okay, so that's rather important. I just wanted to make this point about cultures not being entirely separate. So coming back to positioning, since we're talking about Asian communication, we need to position our cultural perspective in the research that we do as a communication scholar. Otherwise, you could be accused of being biased. You know, you're biased to that means you consider your culture special or something. But if you are looking using the lens of your culture, you need to explain why you're using the lens of your culture, why you're using a particular concept that's embedded in your culture, and why is it important in the context of your study. All right, so that's important. So the first thing you do is you look at the academic content you're trying to study. You identify the gap or the problem. So you may already have a few ideas about what the problems are. You define your contributions. So you say, if I research this, I will find something that no one else has found. Can I say when you position, it doesn't mean you already have the answer. If you already have the answer, that's not research, right? You're just cheating. It's like, I already know the answer. I pretend to do research, then I just give the same answer. That's not what you're doing. All right. So those of you doing thesis work, you have an idea, you have a niche. So it's like, this is so interesting. I don't know what the answer to this is. That's why I wanted to do research. But it's in the Asian context. So let me look at what Asian theories there are. And then if you find, oh my God, there's no Asian theory. So once I study this and I find themes and categories, I will, depending on what my findings are, I can develop
of ethnocentrism and discrimination from the Korean public.
my own this area of study. So this is where you define your contribution. If I do this, I will find something, that I can then categorize and deliver as a, credible finding that could be used for future methodologies.
It's also a fact to
And finally, you need to know your audience and what use they have of it, because when you're making recommendations, it's like, oh, I found this. So what? The next question is, so what? What based on your based on your findings, what can you recommend? Who will find it useful? Who's going to use it, right? So that's where your recommendations come in. Is it for, is it a theoretical underpinning that's new? People might be interested, theories. Practitioners, communication experts, publicists, for example, marketers, people in marketing, people in advertising, people in public relations, for example, people in media studies, who will find it useful, and that's where you make your recommendations. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Okay. Any questions about this so far, guys? Is it pretty clear to you? Yeah?
Yeah.
It's a Firdaus question, and I hope it'll become clear to you. So the thing is, not just to Firdaus, but all of you, I teach public relations, okay? And in teaching public relations, we teach a lot of American public relations theory, all right, because it developed during that time. So Edward Bernays, for example, what other names do you need to know? Well, a whole host of, oh my God, I forgot his name. Grunig, Professor Grunig, right? He's emeritus professor now. So Grunig and Hunt, Edward Bernays, who is not a professor but a practitioner. So you've got these very well-known individuals, both in practice and in theory. And when I was teaching public relations, I use a lot of their theory. And in the Western tradition, persuasion is bad and dialogue is good. Okay? So persuasion means somebody must win, somebody must lose. I'm telling you from the Western perspective. So persuasion is considered good for the winner, bad for the loser. Persuasion is also manipulative. Persuasion doesn't always tell you the truth. Persuasion just wants to sell you an idea or a product. So if I tell you, oh, buy this bracelet, it's so good, it's like 5 microns, covered. This bracelet is covered by gold a few times, it's not going to tarnish and all that, but actually it's not going to tarnish in the first 2 years, but the third year it will tarnish. I'm not telling you that. I'm just telling you if you wear this and it's not going to tarnish this year, So the thing about the Western tradition is persuasion is deceitful. It is not a good thing, but it's necessary, okay? Especially if you want to sell things and sell ideas. So that was where persuasion sits. But then again, you've got some Western theories that say, hang on, persuasion can be ethical. Because if I'm a good product salesman and I want to sell you something and I want you to come back to me and, to have recurring sales, then I need to tell the truth. So I might say, oh, it's got a 5-year warranty. But after that, if it should tarnish, you can come back and we'll charge you $10 or something negligible to coat it back in the color or the gold or whatever. So they say that persuasion can be ethical, but persuasion is largely subject to manipulation. But that's not the same in the Islamic tradition. So I will tell you about persuasion in the Islamic tradition shortly. Then Western tradition says dialogue is the best. Dialogue is harmonious. Dialogue is although it can cause disharmony, Okay. Disclosure and honest.
Recording
see
in
where it's
progress.
going? Right. So if I'm going